Hello, welcome to my world where all is well. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts that create the things. Today is Friday, November the 25th, 2022, and it is 12:55 hours. I have to say happy birthday to my friend Arian. Happy birthday. I haven't seen you in a while. Guess we have to get together or something, but happy birthday. And I know all is well in your world also. I want to talk to you today about shame and cruelty are the opposite of God. Shame and cruelty are the opposite of God. I remember my first king was in high school. He had made it all the way to high school, a teenager now. And I remember him coming to me one day, frantic. He said, "Ma, you got pregnant with me before you got married." He had just discovered that and he was devastated. It was like, why would you do that? He was like, "I'm a bastard. I was born out of wedlock," or something he was saying. I said, "No, I got pregnant with you before I got married. But I was married before you was born." But either way, I was still pregnant with him before I got married. And I was ashamed of myself. I was always known as the quiet church girl who made good grades in school. And I was sort of a loner in school, stuck to myself. I had a few friends every now and then, but because of my quieted sexuality, I purposely chose I would rather be by myself. I had to think this thing through. Because when you're dealing with spirituality and your sexuality, at a young, precious age, especially as a teenager, and not seeing any positive examples about your sexuality, but going to an abusive church who's telling you that you're going to die and go to hell because of your sexuality, that you did not make up, that you did not just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I want to be a same gender loving woman." Just sit and imagine that. But dealing with shame and cruelty, the reason why I brought up the story with my first king, because I remember the so-called church that we went to, we was the members of. I did not choose to be a member of it, but I was raised and brought up in a family who were members of this church, which means I had no choice but to go because I was still a child. And I'm grateful for my parents. I don't blame my parents for any of this, by the way. I honestly, sincerely believe my parents loved us and did the best they could with what they knew and what they had. I really do. I love my parents to death. My mom is the sweetest person on earth. I have no doubt about it. Nobody else can ever tell me anything different. She is the sweetest person on earth, and she will always be. But going to this church, I remember we had to stand in front of the church and apologize to the church. Now, I didn't sleep with the church. I was responsible for feeding the church. The church wasn't my family, wasn't living with me. The church was not paying any of my bills. Only my parents was. I felt the only people I needed to apologize to were my family, the people who was responsible for me. But no, I had to stand in front of the church and apologize for my shame. And I remember after this, there was this particular evangelist. She's dead and gone now. And she didn't say she didn't agree with what happened, but I could sense that she did not agree with what had just happened. Because after that, only one person out of that whole entire church, I still was about a 40 or 50 member church, but one person came to me, and she was an evangelist. She told me, "Do not hang your head down in shame. Be proud. You're carrying something special." And she told me my feelings can affect that child. Now, I love my first king, and I don't have his permission to share with you his spirituality and or sexuality. But I did read in a book, and please go study this. Look up the Kinsley Institute if you want to know more about sexuality. I'm not an expert on everybody's sexuality. I'm only an expert on Frida's sexuality. So people like to put on my social media pages and in my inboxes asking me questions about being gay and stuff. I can only tell you my personal experience and my personal research. Go research your research. The Kinsley Institute, all they do is study sexuality and sex. I would start there and then research and read books. I've read multiple books for and against sexuality, for and against spirituality. And it's this, and the reason why, because it's this pastor in Florida who really saved my soul. I remember going to this particular pastor for counseling. I don't want to say this person's name or this person's church, because what I say, I don't want it to affect this person's ministry at all. But this person told me, they said, I believe being a homosexual is wrong. I'm going to teach at my church that being a homosexual is wrong, because that's what I believe based on the research I have done and based on how I see the Bible. But I can't go to heaven or hell for you. I would recommend you doing your own research, prayer. He told me, this person told me to pray, do my own research, and find my own salvation. That freed the hell out of the blessed assurance out of me. Because that's literally what I did. I remember going to the library and I remember Googling books about one of my favorite, the first books I ever got, and I still have, and I read it every now and then, or every now and then I just grab it and read a page or two. What the Bible really says about homosexuality. I would start with that. If you are so concerned about why I'm a same-gender loving woman, I don't know why. I don't think anybody who's not responsible for feeding me or effing me should be concerned about my sexuality. But since you are so concerned, start with reading what the Bible really says about homosexuality, and then research, because that was the first book I got. After I got that book, I look in the index and I research where this, I can't remember, Daniel Hallmark is the author. I started researching on where he got his research from. And that's when I came upon the Kinsley Institute and other universities and people who just study sexuality. Then I started getting books that were against homosexuality, because I didn't want to have a one-sided brain. And then I started researching the Bible itself. And that blew my mind. It's going to be hard for y'all to swallow, but trust me, I'm telling you the truth as I know it. I know a lot of y'all church-going Bible thumpers going to probably disagree. But I'm so grateful the church I go to does the same research that I do. Anyway, when you start to research the Bible and you start to research King James, that's all I'm going to say to keep this, because I'm getting off topic here. Just research. Don't just sit in church and listen to everything your pastor say. Research, okay? How did I get off on top of that? Yeah, this event, she came to me and she told me to keep my head down in shame. I got the sense that she didn't agree with what just happened to me by being in front of the church, apologizing. It wasn't their business if I was pregnant or not. And I'm so grateful for my dear sweet mother. She told me if I had any issues, somebody come to me asking me any questions, to send them to her. So I got a feeling that my own mom didn't agree with what just happened. But for some reason, people were afraid, or out of respect, or because what they was taught, obedience is better than your sacrifice. But it's not obedience to the pastor, it's not obedience to the church, it's obedience to God. But when you're up under a leadership that's more like a witch than a spiritual leader, and look up the definition for witch, and then before you make a comment, look up the a lot of people up under witches who they think are pastors. Anyway, I don't want to that's a whole nother video. Anyway, just be careful. I don't want what happened to me to happen to anybody else, okay? But my mom and this one evangelist, she is passed away now. If she was still here, I would literally call her right now and tell her thank you, and I would get her permission to say her name and see if she agreed with it or not. But I got the feeling she was disgusted with what just happened. But she told me not to be ashamed, because she told me that everything I'm feeling, my baby could feel. That's where I was going with this with the cancer. I remember her telling me that. And so now, my first king, I didn't talk to him. I didn't get permission for him to share anything about his spirituality or sexuality. All I'm gonna do is tell you what I have researched, and you can research it too. And I remember B. Slade, he posted this publicly, so I can say this. I remember him speaking on this as well. B. Slade, that when a female is pregnant, and if the female is extremely sensitive or going through something very stressful, or is filled with shame, it can cause the baby that she's born with to most babies that are born end up being same-gender loving children. Do I blame myself if I happen to have a child that way? No, I'm grateful that child chose me to be his way to enter into this human experience. Okay, I love all three of my kings. And they would ask any of my kings. People that know my kings, they know what I'm about to say is the truth. I've told them ever since they was born, I don't care what you do, as long as you don't hurt yourself or anybody else, I will always be there for you. I don't care. I don't care if you gay, straight, crippled, or crazy. I will always be there for you. I want them to know that they can always talk to me about anything and everything. I try to make sure they ain't scared to talk to me about sex, about anything. My children knew about sex before they went to kindergarten. Now, I know that probably was threatened to other children or other parents of children who had children in kindergarten, but my children knew what a penis was, what a vagina was, and not to be involved with either or until they had a job and a condom. They had to have both. If you don't have a job and a condom, you could not look at anybody else with a penis and or a vagina. I don't care what they had. When you get a job and a condom, then come talk to me. Shame and cruelty are the opposite of God. God loves me and he has a wonderful plan for my life. When I really believed that and accepted that, and I really believed that God loved me, that's when I really knew for a fact and without a doubt that shame and cruelty were the opposite of God. And if I was experiencing this in any type of church, I don't care what they called it, I knew that church was not of God. That church is the opposite of God. If you are in a church that's causing you shame and cruelty, you are not in a church where God resides. God resides. Where God resides. Where is that from? P-Valley. P-Valley. Come over here with God. Something. For some reason, P-Valley just came up. Where God resides just came to my mind. But God does not reside in shame and cruelty. As a matter of fact, God is the opposite of shame and cruelty. Okay, God is a God of comfort. If that church would have comforted me and said, you know what? You may have sinned, but you are so much better than this sin. You are not your sin. Your sin was hung on a cross years ago. Your sin has already been forgiven. Jesus knew this was going to happen to you. Don't worry about, hey, what do you need? How can we support you? How can us as a church community throw our loving arms around you and protect you? Now, I've experienced that at the church that I go, not with me personally, but with other people who may have gotten themselves pregnant. I don't want to speak on other, I shouldn't do that, but I know for a fact the church I go to now, Hillside International Chapel and Truth Center, if I was a member of that church when this happened to me, exactly what I just said would have happened to me. Hey, how can we love you? What do you need? How can we support you? Okay, look, here are some counseling services we have. We have counselors on our staff here. Just schedule an appointment, no charge for you. Okay, do you have a OBGYN? We have doctors here that happens to be members of our church. Let's see if your insurance will accept them. If not, we can help guide you in the right direction. Now, I know every church is not going to have a counselor, a doctor, or people that are members of their church or on their staff, but the church could say, hey, we can help you find these people who are spiritually based people who can help you walk through this without any shame, cruelty, or guilt. yesterday was Thanksgiving. I hope and pray everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I did. We watched a movie called Spirited with Will Ferrell in. Any movie with Will Ferrell in, I like Will Ferrell. I really do. One of my favorite movies with him in it is Step Brothers, Talladega Nights, Dear Baby Jesus, when he prayed to baby Jesus. I cracked up. Oh, sorry. Anyway, Spirited with Will Ferrell. I don't want to tell you the movie because I want you to watch the movie, but I thought about this movie when I was thinking about shame and cruelty, the opposite of God, after I had my prayer and meditation this morning. And scripture reading, all the stuff I do every morning. Oh, so by the way, for those of you who may be viewing my channel for the first time, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. But I'm an individual who's been diagnosed with PTSD, social anxiety, and depression. Okay, so I'm doing this video. It's very therapeutic for me to do it. And after talking to my therapist, we decided together it'll be good for me to make these videos, and maybe I can help someone else by letting them see what I'm going through. So I share these videos on YouTube, hoping to help someone else. So I hope it helps you, and I hope you help me through the process. If I err in any way, please blame it on my mental and not my heart. I sincerely mean well. I really do. Now, I was watching Spirited, and in this movie, this girl comes to her uncle for advice because she wants to run for class president. And the uncle said, okay, who is your opponent? And the girl tells her uncle who her opponent is. He said, okay, let me find out something bad about your opponent so you can post it on social media so we can shame him, and then that way you can win. Now, the girl did not want to do this because she was like, no, my opponent is a good person. I don't want to do this. But the uncle ended up finding something bad about the opponent. The girl posted it on social media. She did not want to, but she did. She ended up winning, and then finding out that the opponent, who was a child, these are children, he unalived himself. He made himself no longer physically active. So in the scene in the movie Spirited, it's all sad and everything, but they were able to do a do-over. And in the do-over, she never posts what her uncle sent to her to post against the opponent. And that reminded me about something I went through in middle school. I'm not going to mention the teacher just in case someone from my school may happen to find this video. I don't believe I'm in touch with anybody from my middle school. If I am, I find out literally. I can't remember a lot of things or details from when I was young. I don't know if I'm just crazy or have memory issues. A lot of stuff I don't remember until my parents or my siblings bring it to my attention. Then I will remember. Like, I literally have people on my Facebook page, and I don't even know who they are until they remind me. They say, hey, we went to high school. Then I literally totally, after they tell me who they are, then I remember everything about them. So I might have some people on my social media accounts who know me, but until we have a conversation, it's not in my mind yet until we have a conversation. But I remember when I was in middle school, and in this particular class, the teacher called this person up to the front of the school who was a student. The person stood up in front of school, and the teacher said, everybody in the class passed the test except for you. And I remember everybody said, ooh, and they would started laughing and things. And I felt so bad. I really did. I put my head down. I was like, why is she doing this? In middle school, I knew that was wrong. And the person, the student up front, I could tell the person wanted to cry, but was trying so hard not to. And me, I was either on the honor roll or close to, I think the lowest grade I've ever gotten on my report card was a C throughout my grade school years. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I was mostly in the high grade areas. But So when it came to tests, it never bothered me. I knew I would pass them, but I felt shameful. I was like, why did this teacher have to do that? All this teacher had to do was just pass out the test. Everybody look at their own grades. And then, because in my mind, I was telling myself, if I were the teacher at that time, I would have took him to the side and said, look, I would have told that student personally, everybody passed but you. Is there a reason why you didn't pass? Find out why. Did he not understand the assignment? Is there something going on in his personal life? Is there something going on at home? Are you okay? Shame and cruelty are the opposite of God. That was totally opposite of what I believe God would have done. And I don't believe he agreed with that. I don't know where this student is today. I pray that this student is still physically active here on earth and doing well, and has used that as a way to know how not to act or how not to treat other students or children. And you know what? Jesus did not hide his face from shame. When he died on that cross, he held his face up. He didn't hide his face from. So that tells me Jesus took on shame so I wouldn't have to. I should not have to be subject to shame and cruelty. Now, in this human experience, we all going to experience shame and being ashamed and doing stuff shameful and ashamed to other people and things like that. We're going to experience, but I don't have to consume it. I don't have to take it on. I don't have to allow that shame to determine my life, because Jesus he did not hide his face from me. He took on the shame so I wouldn't have to. I could tell you some stuff I'm ashamed about. I already talked to you about getting pregnant while I was still in high school, in the 12th grade, married, all of this in the 12th grade. Shameful. I was not happy at all. And at the same time, questioning my sexual identity. But I thank God for my, I haven't gotten his permission either, but I thank God for my ex-husband. He was the first person to accept me for who I truly am. He was the first person that taught me things and showed me things, and I will always love and appreciate him for that. And I pray he's doing well, living his best life. For real, he's gave me 2 kings that are the best things that has ever happened to me. I will always be grateful for him for that. And once I become a millionaire, he will be one. For real. To make sure our kids are forever taken care of. But one thing I'm ashamed of, I remember when I was playing cops and robbers, they gave us a taser. I've never had a taser before. I brought it home, didn't have the cartridges in it, to the cartridges out because I didn't want no accidents. But then I turned it on and I pointed the red beam at my second king. And he was terrified because he didn't realize that there was no harm that could come to him. But because the red beam was pointed at him, he didn't know that. So I should have never pointed that taser at him because it terrified him. He was terrified. And I'm ashamed that I did that, thinking it was funny, a joke, at his expense. You see how mentally damaged my mind is for me to be laughing and joking at my own child? I wasn't a good mother at that point. Really ashamed of pointing that at him. I think about it more than I should. I'm sure he's probably off because I remember mentioning it to him a long time. He didn't know what I was talking about. So I never brought it up to him again. But I still hold shame for pointing that at him. I really do. And you know why I feel like I shouldn't be ashamed of that anymore? Because Jesus despises shame. It's in Matthew, read it. I think chapter 5 or chapter 21, something like that. Or chapter 7, read one of those. But Jesus despises shame. And even though he despised it, he stood there and held his face up and took on shame. He took on something he despised so I wouldn't have to go through it. So why am I still here? Literally 10, 15 years later, Still ashamed of something I did when he was so small that he is now 22 years old and can't even remember, don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So I got to get over that. And I remember also talking to a sex worker. I was talking to a sex worker one day, and she told me that she was so ashamed of her. She told me a story how she was in a car with a gentleman she was performing a sexual act on. And after she performed her sexual act, she wanted her money, but some type of way they got in an argument. I forgot how she told me they got in an argument. And this person pulled out a gun on her. And she was so ashamed at what she was doing to make money to feed her drug habit, that when he pulled the gun out, she didn't scream and try to run or anything. She was literally inside hoping he would go ahead and kill her. She was really hoping and praying that he would kill her and end her life. That's what she wanted. That's a lot of shame to hold and have, to want to rather die. But I began to talk to her and say, you know what? If that would have happened, you would not be here now to have this conversation with me. Now that you've had this conversation with me, are you glad that you are here? Or do you still wish he would have went ahead and pulled the trigger back then? And she said she's glad she was here. And she told me she's glad she met me. And I told her, I'm glad I met you. I've never heard a story like that before. Like, you have inspired me more than I may have inspired you. I mean, all of us are the same. All of us are. We come from the same God. We have the same Father, Mother, Father. I believe God is both Mother, Father, God, that loves and cares for us differently. Whether you're a sex worker, a police officer, a individual with a mental disability, I believe God loves us all the same. There's nothing that was different from her than me. The only reason why I'm not in a car forming sex acts on a dude or whatever, which would be totally disgusting for me, but good night. But either way, get that thought out of my head. The only thing that would be different is she, as a sex worker, got caught doing something that this society has determined to be illegal. The difference was I happened to be the person with the rest powers. Yes, I see it, but we are all the same. I've done stuff. I believe I've done stuff that I'm sure I'm supposed to have been locked up for before. I've stolen before. I've stolen before. That's illegal. It's a crime, probably a misdemeanor. But I remember I didn't have no lunch money before, and I wanted some lunch money. And then the job I worked for, it was $20 hitting up in the cash box or somewhere, and I remember taking it to go get lunch. Yeah. I'm ashamed of that, but it's a true story, but I did it. I'm a thief. I stole something. I didn't continue to be a thief. I no longer steal. I can't remember the last time I ever stole something. Maybe I stole an ink pen from my job. I don't even think I've done it because I don't take anything. I don't even bring my gun belt home from my job when I was working. I have to think. I don't think I'm no longer a thief. If somebody can recall me stealing something besides that, write in the comments or something, because I can't think of anything else. When I was a child, I remember going to the dollar store and stealing a Kit Kat. My parents don't know about this, so don't tell them. I remember stealing some change out of my mom's drawer in her room. Did I do that? I think I put it back. I can't remember. I have to ask my mom. So I should be ashamed of myself. But God took on shame, so I shouldn't have to. Okay? So that's the difference between the sex worker and me. I mean, no sin is greater than the other. She chose sex working. I chose being a thief. And a whole lot of fornication. Well, then again, that's a whole nother video, because the Bible's definition of fornication and the dictionary different definition of fornication is totally different. Fornication comes from the word porneia, P-O-R-N-I-A, porneia, and there's a totally different definition in Hebrew and in Greek and in Arabic. I don't want to get off to that. I shouldn't even brought that up. But not only does shame happens at school, but it happens at church. I told you the story about what happened to me, having to get in front of this whole church, telling them, hey, I done messed around and effed up, and literally effed somebody and got pregnant, and I'm with child. But another story I have, I remember this single mother. She was a single mother at the time and had 5 children. And I remember one of her children was doing something bad. And we was in church, and the pastor was up. The pastor stopped their entire sermon to shame this mother and tell this mother that if she would discipline her children at home, she wouldn't have to come to church and discipline them. My heart sank. It dropped. And it dropped further because I could not understand. Why are these people members of this church? Why are they taking this? You know why? Because the pastor taught people that if they didn't come to church, they wasn't saved and they didn't love God. And they believed that, so they would take the abuse and come to church and face and deal with the shame. You know how, I know a lot of people say church abuse. I don't like to say church abuse because there's school abuse, there's community abuse, there's home abuse, there's restaurant abuse, there's grocery store abuse. I mean, the list goes on and on. Church abuse done got on this whole name because people expect more out of the church. But I don't like where it has gone. But and I remember at one point thinking, if heaven was anything like this church, I don't want to go. I mean, I was so desperate to get out there. I was like, I remember sitting in church one day, true story, I remember sitting in church one day literally just looking at him. I'm like, look at all these people and look at what this person is saying in the pulpit. I'm like, do y'all really believe this? I never could conceptualize what was going on. I never could conceive it in my brain. But I just sat there thinking one day I would never ever have to come back again. And I remember when I got married and we moved to Florida, and I remember the pastor gave us this book of associated churches who were affiliated in the same religion where we was moving to. And I remember telling him, I said, I am never going to any church like the church we grew up in. Of course, this person didn't agree with me who I was married to, so we ended up going. But gratefully, God is so good. He ended up liking the church that I liked. It was non-denominational. I didn't sense any abuse. And it was finally the first church that I went to that I could say, now if heaven is like this church, if God is anywhere similar to this pastor, I'm willing to do what it takes to get there. I remember another thing that I was shamed for. When I was a teen, I had horrible pimples as a teenager. I don't know how horrible it was, but I mean, I had pimples everywhere. Everywhere you see on my face, I had pimples everywhere. It was horrible. I looked horrible. Horrible pimples on my face. And I remember we was in Huntsville, Alabama for Christmas one year. And a family member came to me and said, and just looked at me and said, what you gonna do about all them pimples on your face? My auntie was sitting beside me and she hugged me. She said, you beautiful baby, don't listen to him. And I was like, thank you, auntie. And I remember going in the bathroom and just crying. I just looked at myself in the mirror and just cried. I'm like, I didn't purposely do anything to cause these pimples. I didn't. I remember my second king, my first king, I remember him dealing with too much pimples, but my second king had pimples. And I remember when he had pimples, I remember looking at him in the mirror at his pimples, and that scene came back to my mind, which I just told you all about. And I said, you are so handsome. I kissed him on the cheek while I was trying to. He kept fighting me, but I told him I wasn't going to stop until I got a kiss. So he finally gave in. He said, you are so handsome. I'm like, them pimples, they're not going to be there forever. It just means that you're growing. You're growing to a young man. And every time I saw him, like, you're so handsome. To this day, even Thanksgiving, yesterday, I told him, you're so handsome. No matter what, I'm not going to let a pimple define who you are. I'm not going to allow something that's temporary tell me who my king is. Okay? And you know what? That's the church talk. Now, I believe that marriage is forever. Most people get married, I believe, to stay in it forever. Except for me and Jill Scott. Jill Scott's my future ex-wife. I don't know if she'll stay married to me forever or not. I have no idea. So right now, I just call her my future ex-wife. But besides that, I believe marriage is forever. But if you're in a abusive relationship, if your marriage is abusive, physically, emotionally, and or financially, no church should be considering themselves a church if they're telling you, okay, you in this marriage, you have to deal with it and pray that God gives you strength to go through it. That is totally the opposite of the God I know. That is cruel. Shame and cruelty are the opposite of God. Where does common sense come into the place? If the people in church would use just plain old common sense. God created common sense for a reason. Let's use it. Hey child, I love you. Your husband is beating your blessed assurance up. I don't want you getting your blessed assurance beat up every day. I don't want you coming to church with a black eye every day. How about you leave him? Get a divorce. It's that simple. But my pastor's saying I need to deal with the standard because marriage lasts forever. Yes, that's my will. I would love for a nice, healthy marriage to last forever. But this is not my intention for you. This is not my plan for you. I love you, and I have a wonderful plan for your life. This is not in alignment with the wonderful plan I have for your life. If we could just use common sense. Goodness gracious. Please, people, just use, a lot of stuff is comical. I'm like, oh my God, if these people in church would just use common sense. Whew. It's not funny because I know some serious true stories about this for real, but I just wish people would just use common sense. So you mean to tell me God wants you to stay in a marriage for the guy that's beating your butt up forever? You die, go to heaven. You this same abuser in heaven. You get another relationship with somebody. So now you in heaven, still getting your blessed assurance beat up, and God is satisfied with that. Think about it. Please, somebody think. Please. Good night. And don't allow shame to determine your future. If you happen to be married with an abuser for 20 years and you come to realize, hey, this is not what God wants for me, I'm going to get a divorce, but everybody in the church looking at you crazy inside out because you got a divorce, forget them people. They're not responsible for feeding you or effing you or paying any of your bills. It don't matter what none of them got to say. Okay? That's just the truth. You can respect them from a distance. Okay? You don't have to continue to go to that church. Don't allow the shame to determine your future. Just get the divorce or do what you have to do. If you're scared of the word divorce, get a separation. If you don't want to just get out the house. Go somewhere else. You have a family member, a friend, or somebody, a woman's shelter. Now, I pray I'm never in that situation. I've never been in a physically abusive situation I'm aware of. Now, I've had an ex-girlfriend slap me before because I called somebody else, another girl's name. I'm ashamed of that also. I'm also ashamed to say I was a horrible cheater. I cheated on every girl I have ever been with except for my wife. There's no girl, woman on earth who can tell you that I slept with them while I was married to my wife. Okay? That's the God's honest truth. If so, they can leave a comment or something because I sure would like to know. But I'm done with all of that. I think I couldn't handle the temptation. Look at me. Look at my face. Look at my weight. Look at my double chin. Look at all of this. I'm still beautiful and acceptable in God's eyes. But most women weren't aware of that. So it made it difficult for me to get women. But once I put on that uniform, when I was playing cops and robbers, all of a sudden, women came from out of nowhere and wanted to get to know me. Oh, really? And my crazy butt can take the temptation, handle the temptation. So I gave in to the temptation. But now I feel like with my mental illness, I'm a little bit wiser. Isn't that strange? Wow. So But I'm not even interested in entertaining getting in a relationship with anybody again right now, because I'm having a hard time myself, me and my therapist and my psychologist and my doctor and my neurologist, handling my PTSD, my social anxiety, and my depression. So why would I want to bring somebody else in the bed to deal with it with me? That's being cruel to them. I mean, I'm having night terrors. Whoever I bring in the bed, I'm going to have night terrors also, because I get up screaming and sweating and thinking something going on and confused because of the PTSD and the albino goblet or whatever these neurologists, these people with education be saying. I just be sitting there. But anyway, then they waking up screaming too, because they don't know what the hell what is going on. So I really deal with it by myself. Plus, relationship, you just got to focus on not only your own happiness, but you want to make sure the person you're with is happy inside of the relationship. I expect the person I'm with to be responsible for their own happiness as well, but it takes two to work on making the relationship itself happy. And right now I have to get myself back to happy. I don't plan on sitting in my shame though. I've tried to be as true, as honest, and as transparent as I possibly can. I don't see a reason to lie to any of y'all. I'm not scared of anybody out there in the whole wide world. I'm only scared of my mommy and God. So I don't see a reason why I need to lie. I used to be a liar. That's another thing I'm ashamed of. I think I still lie every now and then. They call them little white lies. I call them little black lies. They would call them cute little innocent lies. But it's still a lie. A lie is a lie is a lie. But I used to be horrible at it. But I felt that when you live your whole life a lie, it makes lying easier to do. So y'all still help me and prevent me that, God delivers me from totally lying just to make other people feel comfortable. But I can tell you what else I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna allow the shame that I have or I've experienced to allow me to stop God from doing what He wants to do in me and through me. I want God to be able to use me. Even doing this, I could be like, God, look at all I have done. I should be ashamed of myself for up here talking about shame and cruelty are the opposite of God. How can I say that when I've done so much stuff that I should be ashamed of myself for? I've done so much stuff that my parents should be ashamed of me for. And I have the best parents ever. I remember talking to my parents when I was about to say when I came out, but I didn't come out, I was outed. But the worst thing that my parents done was, like, my mom didn't speak to me for a while, but at that time I thought it was cruel, but now I think it's a blessing. I think my mom was waiting to talk to me because she wanted to be careful what she said to me once she did start talking to me. Because when I hear stories from other people I know who are in the LGBTQ plus A community, and the stories that I've heard from their family members and family say about them, I remember one grandmother told me that she had she was raising a gay granddaughter, and she said, I just don't know what to do with her. She's gay. What am I supposed to do with her now? And she was so sincere. She was so serious. And I said simply, just love her, please. Just love her like you love all your other grandchildren. That's all you have to do. Just love her. And I'm so grateful for my parents. Neither one of them has ever disowned me. They've never said, you can't come to the house. You can't bring your significant other to the house. You can't do this. You can't do that. Neither one of them. What did my mom do? My mom, she just told me, hey, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I still love you. I can't remember exactly what she said. My dad, he just said, hey, I'm still your dad. You still my daughter. Those facts are still true. And that was it. That's the only thing that I can remember. They've ever said. I remember the first time my dad ever came to my house when I was dating one of my exes and she lived with me. He came over to the house. And the only thing he ever asked me was, well, can she cook? So his major concern is, hey, if you're going to date a woman, at least make sure she can cook. At least that's how I took it. But they have never once said, well, we disown. They have never like been ashamed of me. And let me tell you some other stuff that has happened at church. Now, me, I already told y'all about my attire. I call it Frida attire when Frida put it on. Now, I have gone out in a full suit with a tie. Y'all would probably call it a male suit. It was a nice suit for Frida with a tie on. And I believe I looked great in it based on the compliments I've got. I've gone to restaurants with it on, gotten wonderful compliments. I've been in females' bathrooms with it on, with my same appearance. And I've gotten compliments from other women saying, I wish I could wear a suit like that and pull it off like that. I've gone to grocery stores. Now, this is here in Atlanta. Columbus, Georgia, totally different story. But in the Atlanta, Georgia area, never had an issue. Go to a church in the Columbus, Georgia area. Headed to the female's bathroom. A church member tells me, the church member points on my shoulder and said, you see that sign? It said women, you can't go in that bathroom. I looked at it and went straight to the bathroom. I didn't come out because I'm like, okay, is somebody here that's gonna stop? Nobody said no, so I went to the bathroom. Now I remember going outside of the church in the parking lot to the church. This individual calling me, hey, I got to tell you something. So I go to this person, and this person says God told her to tell me something. True story. God told her to tell me something. I was like, okay, what did God tell you to tell me? Because I'm like, okay, now, if God had something he wanted to get to me, I'm right here, God. This is literally what I was thinking. There's no reason why God can't tell me. So, but I'm just listening. She said, God told me to tell you that you need to stop eating what you're eating. Now, you and I both know what she was talking about. We weren't talking about no collard green and cornbread. So, just looked at her. I didn't smile nothing. I just kept walking. I never said nothing to her. But I went and told my mom. My mom handled it. Yes, she did. She went in her pulpit. She's like, look, there's no difference in any sin. I might not like what my daughter's doing. You might not like what your children is doing. But we're going to love them regardless. My mom stood up for me. I'm grateful. Thank you, Mom. Because I was so ashamed of something I did, it caused me to jump into hoops to be accepted by people. And I was like, why am I doing this trying to be? When I realized one day that I was doing extra stuff just to be accepted, I was like, no, I should be here trying to figure out, do I want to accept you in my life? When my wife passed away, I kept a lot of things secret to save her reputation. I still have the very last text message that she sent to me with her apologizing for everything that she did and said. Okay, for people who have judged me and have said things and have continued to disassociate themselves from me because of my actions after her passing. She did a lot of things and said a lot of things, and I never said anything to anybody about what she did and said. I remember being at work one night. Imagine working all night, a 12-hour shift, and coming home to an empty house. No knowledge, no nothing. Gone. I don't blame my wife for anything that was done after she was diagnosed with cancer. I blame the cancer. Because after that diagnosis, she changed. I can imagine after anybody getting a cancer diagnosis that it would change you. So I don't blame her for anything that she have said or done after her cancer diagnosis. But I was left with the car note, a house payment, and a brand new baby to raise on my own with nothing. I had to let it start all over again. She was going outside the house about almost a year before she passed away. And, in a way, about a good 2 or 3 months after she passed away, I ended up getting in a relationship with another female. I did not know this female before my wife passed away. My wife's best friend literally called me and said, hey, I have a friend I know you would like. She's built just like you like him. That's exactly what she said. Because I happen to like thick women. And anyway, she said, I think you and her should be friends. She said, this is what your wife would want based on conversations I've had with her. I said, okay. Now, to be honest with you, I was not in my right mind at all. But still, after going at this time over a year without any companionship, nobody knew what's going on, because like I said, I wanted to save my wife's determination. So anyway, I decided to get in a relationship with this person, and she was a good person, beautiful person. I'm ashamed of doing it at the time we did, because I don't feel like I was ready for it. And in the process, I caused a lot of hurt, harm, and danger to myself and to her, to my children and to her children. And I've apologized, and I apologize again. But for you, who I've never been in a relationship with, but who likes to be in my business, and don't know the full side of the story, but only take the side of whatever you have heard about me instead of talking to me directly, I owe you no apology. But I do ask for your prayers, and I do send you a God bless you. I still love you. I mean, you have every right to believe whatever you want to believe about me. Just know that I have the right to believe whatever I want to believe about me. So I choose to focus on what I believe about me. Okay? But this individual, she knows who she is, and I'm sure she's going to see this video. Me and her still keep in contact every blue moon. Beautiful person from Africa, and God knows I want to go to Africa, the continent of Africa one day, and can cook her butt off too. But I was ashamed because of how people reacted towards me because of the decision that I had made. And I agree, it was the wrong timing. It looked bad. Like, how can you get in a relationship with somebody right after your wife died? But the people who did know the whole story were supportive of me. But it was the people who did not know. They only knew what they had heard or saw, who I noticed shunning away. But I see it now as God getting rid of the people I really didn't need anyway. Because there are people in my life now who been with me before my wife, during my wife, and after my wife. And we still friends because they know the full story. See, once you know the full story, you can see the whole picture because you've been in the picture the whole time instead of outside looking in. You're seeing it from a different point of view. So that's why you see me the way you want to see me. And God bless you. You have every right to see me the way you want to see me, because I'm not allowing you into my inner circle for my mental health reasons. So I'm grateful for the people who are still here with me. And you know what else that spiritual abuse, y'all call it church abuse, I don't. Spiritual abuse can take advantage of people who are shame-based. There are a lot of shame-based people here. I once was a person who was living my life in shame. And when you are ashamed of who you are, it makes it easier for you to be up under the leadership of a person who is a spiritual abuser. And you accept it and you keep going back to it over and over again. I look at the caliber. I remember when I was in Florida, before we decided to join the church we was joining, we went and visited another church. And it was up on the same fellowship, PAW. And our first visit, I remember sitting there thinking, because I remember telling the person I was married to, I was like, I don't want to go to any church affiliated with this association ever again in my life. And so he wanted to go, so we went. And I said, God, please give me a sign. If it's just the church or if it's the association or what. We went in the church, and at the end of the church, the pastor got up and shamed someone in the church service for doing something. I was like, oh no. When the pastor did that, I said, Gerald, I don't care if you go back, but I promise you, I'm not ever going back to that church again. And he said, he agreed. He started to see what I saw. He agreed. And we never went back. And I believe those churches cater to shame-based people who are full of shame and guilt. I believe go to these fire and brimstone churches. I don't need a fire and brimstone church. If you go to a church who preaches more about hell and the devil more than they preach about God, you are not in a God-based church. If your church is filled with shame and cruelty, you are in a church that's the total opposite of who God is. God is love. Love is God. You cannot separate the two. If you feeling shame and cruelty and no liberty at that church, then God is not there. You're just inside of an organization who is hiding up under the coverage of church. And look up the definition of the word witch. And if your pastor fit any of those definitions of the word of witch, of the definition of witch, then you're in a danger environment. You in danger. Okay, get from up under that. And then another thing I'm ashamed of. I'm still going to the shame of. I lost my job. I lost my job that I love, that I spent more time with these people than I did with my own family. This job, I worked 12 hours a day. I was protected and serving, or doing what I so-called protecting and serving as the ability as I could. I was in the hospital. I have documentation to prove it. I have my termination notice, and I have my notice, what you call it, your discharge papers and your intake papers from the hospital. And in all honesty, I was literally inside of the Ridgeview Mental Institute when I got fired from my job. True story. Everything I just said is facts. I'm not mad at my former employee. I'm just stating the facts. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the time, the years that they allowed me to be there, to do what I did. I hope I was a blessing in any way there. But I was ashamed because my identity lied in what I did. My identity lied in who I was. My identity lied in that uniform that I put on. So I felt ashamed and I was depressed. And I still deal with it. I have anxiety every day. Like, why? How am I going to feed my family? It was very emotional, tough for me. I ended up staying longer than what I would have if it wasn't for determination. But, God is good. I'm still working on getting over the shame of losing my job. And I was also ashamed at the fact that I was even admitted at a mental institution. But I can't help it that I started having panic attacks. The ambulance got called to my house to take me to the emergency room 4 times in 1 week. After that 4th time, Wellstar said, "Nope, we're sending you to Ridgeview Mental Institute to figure out why you keep having these panic attacks." Now, I could have refused it and then had more panic attacks, so it got more in trouble more with my insurance company. But I said, no, I need to get the help I need because I'm tired of these panic attacks. Because to me, it felt like heart attacks. I was experiencing something I had never experienced before. Like, what is going on? So I'm grateful that Ridgeview Mental Institute gave me the help I need. Okay, now I know a lot of people might have been ashamed and will never tell you that they was in a mental institute. But I'm grateful for Ridgeview Mental Institute. I still go there at least once a week, or I try to if my social anxiety don't get involved. And I take advantage of the therapeutic practices that they have there. If you happen to go through a mental crisis or anything like that, please, I highly recommend the Ridgeview Mental Institute, the one here in Smyrna. I heard they had others in other places, but the one here in Smyrna. And I can't tell you who all there or not, but there are celebrities who have been admitted there. And that's all I'm saying about that. But it's a great facility. I'm still engaged with it. I have ongoing outpatient mental services, and I'm grateful for them. But shame and cruelty is the opposite of God. So I'm choosing not to be ashamed of it, and I'm choosing to walk with God. And you know what? I'm ashamed of the people I thought I could trust. I was like, what is this saying about me? I thought I could trust this person, but this person has totally lied on me or told me things that I now know are not true. And I was like, does this say that I'm naive? I was ashamed of myself for putting my trust in someone I should have never trusted. Then I started turning that thing around and said, well, wait a minute. What about people who put their trust in me, who I have let down? Because I'm sure I've done it to somebody. I've done that with my ex-girlfriends. They put all their trust in me. And I let them down. I broke their heart. So I can't get mad at the person I put my trust in with something and come to find out they twisted it around or they telling me untruths and I find out later about it. I'm like, I don't have time to be mad at anybody. Like I said, we are all the same. Like I was telling you about the sex worker. We are all, she chose sex work, I chose stealing, somebody chose not to be trustworthy. We're all the same. I hold no animosity. If anybody want to call and talk to me, if I answer the phone, because I barely answer my phone, to be honest, y'all. It's too much anxiety in the world. So if you're not a family member, it don't ring. Most of the time I have it, you have to be in my favorites. Only my family members are in my favorites for it to ring. But you know what else I found about shame? Shame, anger, and loss can bring me wisdom. All shame is not bad shame or unhealthy shame. Now there is some toxic shame that you should not have or deal with. And isolation brings on more shame. I learned that with my social anxiety. Just sitting in that shame, that is not good and healthy for you. Change your environment. If you find yourself just sitting at home and sitting in shame, like, I'm so ashamed of myself, or I'm so ashamed of me not having a job, I'm so ashamed of being on disability, I'm so ashamed that I got to file for Social Security disability, I'm 43 years old, a black female, and I no longer have a job that I planned on retiring from. That was me, and I'm still going through it. It's a process. I sit at home and just be ashamed, like, wow, I'm supposed to be taking care of my parents right now. They're not supposed to be calling and checking on me. I'm supposed to be taking care of my kids right now. They're not supposed to be trying to take care of me. That is shameful and heartbreaking. But it's not going to be always. It's just not, because all is well in my life, and I believe that. And I believe that God has a wonderful plan in my life, and I'm going through this to help someone else. It's for a reason, and I'm going to believe that, and I'm not going to isolate myself. Whenever I start feeling ashamed, you know what I do? I literally change my environment. It was a piece of advice I got from my therapist that is great advice. She said, when you start to feel depressed about your job, losing your job, change your environment. I literally just go out and sit on the patio, or I go for a walk. I do something. I change my environment, and that helps. I look at the sky. I call it going outside to look at God, because when I go outside, most you will see is God. The most you will see is what God has created. The sky is bigger than anything you will ever see outside. The greenery, the grass, the trees, the dirt, the air, the wind, all of that is God. Surround yourself with God and just bask in, graced in His glory. It's a beautiful feeling. And toxic shame will tell you that you're a bad person. That's toxic. I'm not a bad person. But healthy shame will tell me, hey, I did something bad. I did something horrible. But I am not bad. What I did was bad. Pointing that taser at my son was bad. Lying was bad. Cheating was bad. Stealing was bad. All those things that I have done were bad. But I am not bad. I am cheerfully and wonderfully made and loved by somebody who literally died for me. Healthy shame allows me to take responsibility for what I did without blaming anybody else. I'm not blaming my former employer. I'm not blaming Ridgeview. I'm not blaming my doctors for taking away my driving privileges. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming the medicine I have to take every day just to be functional. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm taking responsibility for this PTSD. I'm taking responsibility for this social anxiety, and I'm taking responsibility for this depression, because if I would have been focused on my mental health instead of focusing on trying to get to work to make this money and take care of my kids, then I don't believe I would be in the situation I am. So I have nobody to blame. Okay? I'm not ashamed of my shame. When you start to not, if I was ashamed of my shame, I would not be doing this video. But I'm not ashamed of it anymore. All of us have shame. All of us have something we are ashamed of. Most people will never tell you publicly what they're ashamed of. And that's fine. It's nobody's business. I just choose to happen to share it because it's therapeutic for me. And hopefully I'm praying that it helps somebody else. And I'm working on overcoming a cycle of shame because it comes and goes. And I'm tired of this cycle of shame just coming and going. One day I will never have to ever deal with it ever again. And just be done with it. I remember a while ago on the Word Network seeing this very popular TV evangelist on public TV. I'm saying it because it's public, but I'm not going to say the person's name because this person is no longer physically active. God bless him. But he literally said on national TV that his wife has to have sex with him anytime he wants it because that's her God-given purpose and God-given role in their marriage. I was like, whoa, this is not the word. This should not be on the Word Network. This is marital rape. I was ashamed to hear that. I was ashamed that he said it. Just hearing it, I was like, ooh. Is anybody on that pulpit gonna tell this minister that what he just said is, these are my naps. I have curls and naps. But that's because I'm African American. So it's natural for me to have curls and naps. I think it's beautiful. Don't try to hide your naps. It's beautiful. Keep your kitchen. Keep it back there. What was I talking about? He said on national TV that it was his wife is demanded to have sex with him anytime he wanted it, whether she wanted it or not, because that was her God-given and God purpose role in their marriage. I heard this with my own 2 ears, y'all. Call the Word Network. See if you can get a transcript of it or whatnot. I don't know, but I heard it myself. It's like, here we go again. That is marital rape. But that's why you have to make sure the leader you under is a leader or a witch. These places we are calling churches, if it's filled with shame and cruelty, it is the opposite of God. If there's no liberty there, it is the opposite of God. They just calling it a church to get you to go to pay your 10% tithe so they continue to abuse shame-based minded people. Please remove yourself from that ministry. I do not believe you need a church to get to God. I know a lot of people believe that fail not to assemble yourselves among those of the righteous. But trust me, if the head is not righteous, and our righteousness is nothing but filthy rags. So no matter where you go, church, school, no matter where you go, nobody is perfect. But if the message they are preaching, the words that they are coming out of their mouth is abusive, is shameful, then look at yourself and say, hey, am I a shame-based minded person? Is that why I keep coming back to this church? All I'm saying, go to a church that is not filled with shame. I've been going to this church since 2010. I've been a member of Hillside since 2010. It is 2022 right now. I can't remember not one time ever being in this church and hearing anybody from the pulpit preaching anything about shame and guilt. All I've ever heard from this church was love and acceptance of everybody. I mean, even people that drink, prostitutes, drug addicts, any and everybody. I think I remember at one time we had a homeless man happen to walk in the church one time. And I remember, God bless her soul, she's no longer physically active, but the bishop we had at that time was like, okay, clean them up, feed them, put them on some clothes. There's plenty of men in here. One of y'all give them a shoe, one of y'all give them a shirt, a jacket. And she was like, hey, okay, take them to the men's bathroom, get them cleaned up. And I mean, she stopped her service to make sure, okay, if he's in here, he's in the right place for a reason. Now, that homeless man, smelling the way he smelled, full of alcohol or drunk, probably didn't even know where he's at, went to a shame-based minded church, they probably was like, okay, you need to get out of here. You're in the wrong place. So look at what you're hearing out of the minister's mouth. Look at the people you're surrounded by. See if they're shame-based minded people, and see if you're in the right environment for you. If the church does not make you want to go to heaven, you might be in the wrong church. But if the church reminds you of this is what I want heaven to look like, it's filled with diversity, where all are welcome and all are loved, no matter what, then you might be in the right church. Okay, remember your shame. I won't forget all the shame I've gone through. I'm going to remember it, so I won't go through it again. Mourn your shame. I'm in the mourning process, and I'm in the healing from it, and also heal from your shame. I believe I'm in the mourning and the healing process from losing my job, the way I lost it, and I'm still healing from it. But you know what? When I'm going to do it this shame, I'm going to go from surviving this shame to thriving out of this shame. I just realized that this is over an hour and 10 minutes. I appreciate you for spending your time with me today, but shame and cruelty are the opposite of God, and I just wanted to make that clear. I love you all, I really do. And I'm not perfect, so I apologize to any and everybody I've ever did anything wrong with, and I mean it from the sincerity, from the bottom of my heart. If you want to reach out to me, contact me or comment, anything so we can make it right. My heart is open, my mind is receptive to making it right. I don't have any room in my heart, my mind, my soul, my spirit to have any hatred for anybody. I wish you all well. I sincerely mean that. Even my enemies, if I have any. I wish everybody love, peace, and happiness and harmony. Because I believe if we were all doing well, we would not have time to hate on anybody. Okay? I just want everybody to be happy. Okay, I'm going to end this with my serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Happy birthday, Ariana.